I'm Stephen John Drew from the official GonnaGeek.com podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out other geeky podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome to the special Season 4 Spring Hiatus edition of the Starling Tribune. I am Stargate Pioneer. Some people have been known to call me Stargate, which is really weird because I'm thinking about a big round thing that you travel through wormholes through the rest of the galaxy. So my friends just call me SP. And your reporters for this special edition of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
I have failed this city.
And Neil.
There's no Arrow on this week, guys. I don't know what to do with my Wednesday nights.
I was playing with my action figures.
Will you play with your Flash action figure or your Hood action figure?
That would be Deathstroke the Terminator.
Nice. Oh. Did you guys see the Voltron Pop Funko figure, by the way?
I did.
Yeah.
What's a Voltron?
Awesome. What's a Voltron? All right.
Can I take away props on the Blab interface?
I got 0. I can't go negative.
This week, since there is no episode of Arrow due to the spring hiatus on the CW, we were going to be looking into Arrow Season 2.5 graphic novel. We will still do that sometime in the future. However, everything failed the Starling Tribune this week. And so we decided just to have a free-form podcast. The floor is open. The Blab seat is open. So come on. If you're out there, you can join us and talk a little bit about Arrow, Green Arrow, anything DC, really. We want to talk about it. So we are really just going to be talking to each other about what we like about Arrow. And in the meantime, this podcast is recorded on Thursday, March 3rd, 2016, live on the Blab streaming service. I'm going to keep doing that, especially until Venture Brothers come back, because it's so cool that way. I like the Venture Brothers. Can't wait till it comes back. We are just a few guys who normally discuss the TV show Arrow, and I will not purport to be normal. So don't believe that for 1 second. And just a little reminder that I am not a comic book expert, although I have a cool comic book store story for you guys later. I'm actually a sci-fi guy, but I'm catching up with the comic lore a bit thanks to folks like Chris.
Yeah, I like comics, guys.
And Neil.
It's actually a good week to read comics. This is, everything's on I can't even talk. Hiatus. So it's a good week to read comics and catch up with everything on our DVRs.
It is. So normally we talk about news, articles, announcements. We don't air footage or anything, but anything that's written, we usually think is okay to spoil. We try to stay away from the spoilerly stuff, like if something's truly leaked, we don't talk about it, but we get in there and we try to prognosticate as much as we can given the information available. So basically it will contain minor spoilers along those lines. And just a reminder, all of our past shows can be found, the past shows that have been released anyway, can be found at our archives at GonnaGeek.com. So Chris,
What up?
in 2 weeks, I get to give you a big man hug.
Ew.
Well, that's all I get is you.
Yes, our hosts love each other. They really do.
That's all you get.
Man, maybe I just won't go then.
No, but in all seriousness, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a little panel at C2E2. A lot of us on the Gonna Geek Network are going to be there for a panel entitled Gonna Geek Network Presents Everyday Podcasting for Your Everyday Life. This will be on March 18th, Friday afternoon at C2E2 in panel room S503. You can come see myself. You can see Naki. You can see SP. You can see Willie Nelson. Not that Willie Nelson. You can see the one, the only Beef. You can also see Cody Goff. There's going to be a whole crew of us there.
A slew of crew.
Hang on. So, Chris, which Willie Nelson was on the Muppets last night? I'm confused now.
What's the Muppets?
Oh, you're killing me.
Come on! I actually haven't had a chance to watch it, but I'm looking forward to it.
I've watched this many of it this season. An audio listener, I'm holding up a 0 in my video panel.
It's a funny show. It really is.
You guys want to hear something blasphemous? I never even liked the Muppets when I was a kid. So it just doesn't appeal to me. Muppets, Fraggle Rock, things like that. I'm like, meh.
I never got into Fraggle Rock. I'll give you that. But the Muppet Show, that I always watch that.
I never watched it, man. I didn't care. I watched it occasionally when I was at a friend's house or something like that, but it was never really on in my house. So
it was Saturday afternoons, East Coast time, and I grew up in Minnesota, so that's Central time zone, and it was on at the same time as like The Little Princess or something like that, and it was a slew of Saturday afternoon cartoons, like or early evening cartoons or whatever, not the Saturday morning cartoons, which we all remember growing up. But nobody remembers it now because you got the Cartoon Network, you got Disney XD, you got all that stuff. So cartoons are everywhere.
They don't do Saturday cartoons anymore. They were doing them on the CW for a while. It was like reruns of Justice League and Sensational Spider-Man. They stopped doing those like 2 years ago because when I was up on Saturday morning, I would watch cartoons because I'm a grown-ass man.
Exactly.
So the Muppets have a pretty special place for me and my family. So I guess in the late 70s, they were on weekday evenings, I think, as well as the weekends.
Oh, really?
They had primetime type hosts on. And this was before VCRs. So what my dad would do for us as kids is he would take our cassette recorder and put it beside the TV, one of the ones with actual dials on it.
Yeah.
And he would hit record on a tape cassette, and he would record the audio for us.
Nice.
If we were doing road trips as kids, or we had a family rule, no TV in the morning at breakfast, but we were listening to audio. So precursor to podcasts, we were listening to recordings of the Muppet shows. So
do you have any of those tapes left?
Maybe at my folks' place somewhere, probably not, but we had them all. And then when they all came out on DVD and yeah, my wife got them for me as a Christmas gift one year. So pretty fantastic.
Yeah. So we will be in Chicago, just to wrap that one up, at C2E2 at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, 2:45 p.m. Friday, March 18th in room S503. Please come and meet us. We would love to meet you. And also we're teasing it, but we will have something to give you. So, and if you're a podcaster, it will definitely help you with your podcast.
Give us some high fives while you're at it. We like high fives.
Woo-hoo. The fist bumps, the high fives. I'll hug. I'm not afraid of it. Come on,
It's going to be
guys.
fun. Well, it's a true story. First time I met Naki, the only time I've actually met Naki in person was at C2E2 a few years ago. I only recognized her because of her bright hair at the time, and she literally just jumped on me and hugged me. And there was all sorts of hugging going on from people I knew in Chicago. It was a very odd weekend.
So you're not a hugger.
I am not a hugger.
I'll make sure I hug you.
I like my personal space, man.
Maybe even rub the head. You got to rub the head.
I gotta wax my dome.
It's kind of lucky.
Yeah, it's like a 4-leaf clover. You got to do it.
Oh no! I'm gonna be coming off an airplane to go to this convention. You probably don't want to touch me.
You have a point there. Flying sucks and full of germs. You know how many germs are in those planes? Ooh. And the next time I fly, because I just totally brought this all together in my mind after about 50 years of life on this earth. It's like, there's a lot of germs in it, and they don't wipe it down. In the past, they used to take 2 or 3 hours to clean that plane.
Now they take 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, they don't. You're lucky if the seatbelts get put back in place.
What's a seatbelt?
Every car that has been built since 1968 has had seatbelts in it. Come on,
I'm not buying it, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Hey guys, should we talk about an Arrow?
Yes, we should, because we are an Arrow podcast, the Starling Tribune. I was thinking about that. We have said that we own the domain Star City Tribune, and we are currently called the Starling Tribune.
That's correct.
should we at least verbally on the podcast say we are Star City Tribune? I'm dropping I'm dropping this at these guys live on the podcast. So basically,
I can do that because we could rename the Twitter handle. We could do it.
We could, but I want our
show
listeners. I want our listeners to come in and tell us what they want. Do they want the nostalgia? I mean, once Starling Tribune, always Starling Tribune, or do they want us to change with the time? So please get a hold of any of us. Our Twitter handles. I'm at Stargate Pioneer. Neil is at Neil Isn't Witty, and Chris Farrell is at the Chris Farrell. And you can get a hold of us and just tell us what you want us to do, and we would appreciate that. Anyway, so we are at the 2/3 of the way in now. We're at 15 out of 23 episodes, right?
Yes, sir.
How you guys liking the season, Chris?
I don't like it as much as season 2, but to be fair, season 2 is my favorite of all of them. And that's mostly because I like Slade. That being said, I really enjoy Damien Dark. He's probably my number 2 favorite villain on the show.
Love Neil McDonough. Oh, he's awesome. I actually, as actors go, I'll go Neil McDonough over the Slade. I'll do that. Neil, how have you been liking the season so far?
I would say season 1 and season 2 are still my favorites, but you guys raised some really good points. Neil McDonough is an awesome big bad. And come on, we got Constantine this season. And we got more Katana. We didn't have Katana as in a huge role, but we're going to get Cupid back. And come on, season 4, we have Bam Bam directing, and those have been some awesome. So first time stepping out behind or, controlling the camera. There are a lot of things that we got this season that we haven't gotten yet. We had better than season 2. We had a great crossover with the Flash. I would say season 3 had a great crossover too, but seasons 4 crossover, Legends of Yesterday, Legends of Tomorrow, awesome crossovers. I think season 4 is really strong.
Yeah, those crossover episodes are still on my DVR, and I'll tell you why. Because I think I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time you have multiple shows that are coinciding in the same universe running at the same time. And that would include Buffy and Star Trek TNG and all the other Star Treks, whatever, that they actually had one story that was end to end, from started at one episode and it ended at the other episode. And they did it as such that you almost can't break them. You have to watch both if you're a fan of either show. I think this is the first time that's been done.
It might be. I can't think of a different one at this point in time. I'm like, oh no, this one did it.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Well, I bet there were CSIs that crossed over between Miami and Las Vegas. Yeah.
That crossover full, it was a full end-to-end story that couldn't be broken in the middle.
I think so. I think there was like a serial killer years ago on CSI that did it. So, but don't quote me on that. I'm kind of fuzzy. I want to say Arrow and Flash are the first to have done it, but yeah, I'm betting.
Okay. Well, it's definitely, since I don't follow those shows closely, and I'm not debating that they're not good shows, but I don't follow them. I might have seen like one episode here or there of them. I have other stuff to watch, and I wouldn't know.
It has been years since I've watched them, but season 4 is good. And listen, they told us leading up to season 4 that they wanted to go in a slightly different direction, make it lighter, get rid of some of the angst that was pervasive in season 3, especially with Felicity's character. Did they pull it off in your guys' thoughts? Have we gotten a lighter season 4?
I've read, of course, a lot of the interviews and stuff like that, and they did want to make it lighter, but as much as they did, I don't know. I think this is dark. I think this is as dark as anything else. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, there's been definite elements of dark, but there've also been elements of light. They've done kind of a mix of them. It's not like season 2 where it's like, oh my God, we're going deeper down this rabbit hole. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's been moments of humor and fun to break up what did Damien just do to them? Did Malcolm just lose his hand? Those kind of moments.
That's true. There has been light, and Ali is a lighter character. He's not the brooding Oliver Queen Stephen Amell is having a little bit more fun.
He's having a bit more fun. I don't think, and maybe they just didn't want to make it too jarring. Maybe they wanted it to be more of a transition, but he's still sitting there blaming himself for a lot of stuff. He's still, a lot of angst with having his kid kidnapped and shouldn't I with the telling of Felicity. So he's still a dark character. He hasn't turned into the Flash. I think a lot of people are like, "Whoa, he's not the Flash. It can't be bright and happy." I don't think that was ever at risk.
See,
but the Flash could arguably be turning into Arrow at times.
I would agree with that. I was just going to say the Flash is definitely darker this season than it was last season.
Well, I mean, they even make fun of that with Barry at one point in time. I think Diggle in the King Shark episode, man, you're looking a lot like Oliver with the weight of the world on your back.
Yeah, and that was, by the way, that was a great episode. I love seeing the Diggles plural in Star City or in Central City on that one.
Yeah, with King Shark, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, Neil, if somebody wanted to start, I mean, we talk about, let me tell my comic book story in here and lead into what you're going to talk about. So this week I go into my comic book store, and honestly, I've just recently started doing it. It was actually you and Haley and Adam on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. long box edition. I was like, I should start getting these comics. And then Chris came along and said, I was planning on doing it on Comixology. And Chris said, well, what you can do is you can actually, and this is the Marvel side. I think DC is starting to go this way too, but Marvel, you can get the comic books and then there's a digital code and you can redeem them at marvel.com. So I was like, okay, this is the best of both worlds. I have the paper copy because I actually like reading. I'm old. I'm a fuddy-duddy. I like Star Wars Episode 1. We can go through that again, but I actually like reading the paper copy. And I started to do that, and I've been going for a few months to the comic book store every week. So finally, this week, I go in there, and I go to the cash register. I get my stuff off the rack, and I plop it down, and the guy goes, we have a file service. I was like, yes, I got asked to do the pull list. All right. So I
get a discount.
Yeah, do you get a discount?
You know what? I don't think so. And I don't care. But just having them available, like if I'm gone for a week or whatever, I don't have to worry about missing something like Daredevil. It's barely on the shelf for a day. And there's once or twice there's been a copy. Actually, once I took the last copy off the shelf, and another time I didn't get there in time. It was Wednesday. I actually went, I left work early. It was like 2:00 and it was gone. So the guy said, we're just really constrained on what they allow us to order because they don't want a lot of back copies out there. So we're on a really tight margin. So you can miss some stuff. So for those of you out there that are listening to this that haven't bought comics before and are new to it, like basically I am, what we're talking about is a pull list, which I've heard about before, but I've never actually done. And what you do is you sign up with your comic book store and they get all the credit for the comic books coming in. They're allowed to order more because they know that you're actually going to buy it. So they're allowed to order for their pull list and then a few extra for their shelves. And then you just go there, get your pull list, pay for it, and leave. And it just benefits everybody by doing that. And I heartily recommend you do that. So I got asked for a pull list. Now, I also started reading the Green Arrow, and we're at the end of the run of the New 52 because they're making 52, and then it's Rebirth, as Neil called it. Rebirth. So we're at a good point if you want to jump in on any of these comics, Marvel or DC or whatever. But Neil, if somebody was interested in the Green Arrow, where would they start?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'll give my thoughts, and then I would really encourage people to discover their own by going and taking a look at some of these, either at their comic book store or on Comixology. There are, let's call it 4 phases of Green Arrow in the DC Comics that you can really pick between. Some would argue 5. I would say 4 main runs. The first, it just happened to have some comics here. Imagine that.
How did that happen?
The first is the classic Green Arrow with the Robin Hood hat, the Dennis O'Neil run, and especially you'll find in collected editions with Green Lantern as well. This is from the 60s and 70s. You get great characters like John Stewart actually introduced in this run. You get Speedy dealing with heroin, and you get what's called the Hard Traveling Heroes run. So that's Hal Jordan and Oliver Queen hopping in an old pickup truck and driving cross country, actually with one of the Guardians of the Galaxy from OA, one of the people that maintain the Green Power Lantern, basically showing him the U.S. It's a buddy road story, and it's pretty cool, but it is a bit dated. You will feel like it is in the 60s and 70s. But if you're interested in, what's the history between these characters and why have Green Arrow and Green Lantern always been such a great pair, aside from the fact they're both wearing green, it's huge, and it really establishes this lifelong friendship between the two characters. So that's option one. Go back to the 60s and 70s, read the Hard Traveling Heroes, the classic Dennis O'Neil run. That's not really where I started. I probably started with the Super Friends, actually, on TV.
Nice.
I got to give props to the Super Friends. Wonder Twin powers activate.
Yeah.
But if we move beyond that, I think the next great place to start, if you're into the comics, was with the 1980s, the late 80s, in fact, with the Mike Grell run, what's called the Longbow Hunters. Now, Green Arrow actually in the 80s hadn't been running for a while. So what happened is Mike Grell was brought under contract to bring the series back, but under what then was, and this is before Vertigo. This is the line that would become Vertigo later on. It was a more mature title. They're allowed to show blood. They're allowed to show adult themes. And this was done because this was right after The Dark Knight Returns. So everyone's like, oh, darker, grittier, this is going to sell. If it sounds pretty familiar to what DC is actually going through right now, if you think about it. Dark and gritty sells. Let's make everything dark and gritty. Green Arrow, make him dark and gritty. Well, it worked. Green Arrow as a dark and gritty character worked. It's him and Laurel Lance, or Dinah Laurel Lance, moving to Seattle, starting a florist together and not using any trick arrows, getting rid of the Robin Hood hat and wearing a hood and saying, I'm an urban hunter. I'm going to tackle street level crime. And that's what he did. That's actually what got me back into it. I remember buying that first comic. I was probably a bit young for some of the themes they were talking about in it, but it was probably middle school at that point in time. The Mike Grell run went on. It's probably the longest consistent run that we've had of Green Arrow comics until they killed Green Arrow off in issue 100. Now, he had been getting progressively lighter and lighter as time went on, and eventually he transitioned off the book. Now, at that point, he shows up just before that. He also shows up, or after that, shows up in The Cry for Justice. If I got my timeline right. But they killed him off in issue 100. He's in a plane. He has his arm trapped. It's on the self-destruct on a big bomb. Superman says, well, I can free you out of here, but it'll rip your arm off. And he says, no, I have to do this. When they brought him back in Kevin Smith's run, The Sound of Silence, which is awesome. So I'd call this the third major arc that you want to check out. When Kevin Smith resurrected Green Arrow, an awesome run. And I think that really defines the character for a modern era. Kevin Smith, it's now collected in 2 graphic novels. The first graphic novel is called Quiver. And the next one is The Sound of Violence, where he introduces a character called Onomatopoeia that would actually later go on to become a Batman character. After that, the third graphic novel, so Kevin Smith, after 2 runs, transferred off it, and Brad Metzler would become the writer. Brad Metzler did a great story that went a bit lighter called The Archer's Quest, where he basically teams up with Roy and he redoes the Hard Traveling Heroes storyline. So he and Roy get back in the old pickup truck, the same one from the 1960s, and travel across the country to kind of clean up the pieces that were kind of scattered of his life after he was dead. Now, elements of that are actually shown in the Arrow TV show, especially when it comes to the Solomon Grundy fight, although Solomon Grundy was a Mirakuru soldier. It is awesome. It actually brought tears to my eye reading The Archer's Quest. So I would really recommend that run, and it means a lot to me. At the end of that, you have the Brightest Day, Darkest Night kind of series, and you also have, sorry, if I'm getting it right, you get Cry for Justice, where Roy loses his arm, and Green Arrow actually kills Prometheus. So he commits a crime, cold-blooded murder to take revenge, very justified as far as I'm concerned. And then you get Brightest Day, Blackest Night. Then right after that, they were going to reboot the series, and they stopped and did New 52. And that would be the fourth one that you should really look at, is the New 52 run, which is closer to the Arrow show. He's younger. He's an industrialist with a tech company in Seattle. We're at issue 50 right now. It's been a great run. Now, right up until the Convergence event, it was really interesting. There was a really great run where they dealt with the Arrow clan and the Outsiders run. And then they moved over back to Mark Guggenheim, and you actually brought Felicity and Diggle into the comics. Convergence happened. So the big summer event last year, they kind of did a soft reboot on the backside of it and got rid of Diggle and Felicity. So it was kind of weird. It was like, they're here and they're gone. And now we've got 2 or 3 more issues, and then we get back into Rebirth. So,
dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. Where DC has said what's missing from all these characters is a link to the past. And I would really agree with them. That I've gone back and I've reread some old Black Canary and some old Green Arrow. And remember when I was talking about this lifelong friendship between Green Arrow and Green Lantern?
Right.
That's gone. There's no history. If you look at this, 50-year relationship, at least in the comics, between Black Canary and Green Arrow, and their relationship has had these big ups and downs. And his relationship with Batman, which has been turbulent at points, it's all gone. It's like it never happened in the New 52. And it's missing something. So when Jeff Johns and the crew at DC talk about the fact that they want to bring back a sense of history, I get it. It would mean a lot to longtime fans like me. So that's where we're at today.
That's a flip side. And another side of it is the fact that the screen, the small screen in this case, brings a chance to kind of, as you say, rewrite some of this stuff that might actually become better. And this might become the new lore in some cases. And I get the traditionalists in the comics and saying, oh, this is the way it should be. But maybe it's not the best story to tell with the characters. So just keep that in mind as you go forward. I always am versatile with stuff like this because comics have changed so much over time. But that's just me. Chris, what do you think?
So I was going to say, I had 2 other things I would suggest for some Green Arrow tastes of things. One would be Justice League Unlimited. There's some great Green Arrow specific episodes in the JLU cartoon. And then also, it's not super Green Arrow-y, but more Roy Harper-y. Check out Young Justice, which is on Netflix now. Season 1, he's there as Oliver's sidekick. In Season 2, he's off on his own, and I won't explain any of the reasons why, but it is a great portrayal of Roy and gets in a great deal to Roy and Oliver's relationship and what causes them to fall apart, and Roy's then relationship with Laurel, who is a trainer of the team. Both of those cartoons have great portrayals of the Green Arrow and of the Red Arrow / Speedy / whatever he decides to go by. And on a selfish note, I would say watch Young Justice if you haven't had a chance, because it's on Netflix right now. And there are many rumors going around that if people are watching on Netflix right now, Netflix might pick up a 3rd season of Young Justice. And if you watched it season 2, it wraps up nicely, but then leaves a cliffhanger to set up for a season 3. It's so good. It is quite possibly one of my favorite cartoons.
Totally have to agree with that, Chris. Young Justice was fantastic. And it's really great that season 2 is back on Netflix, because for the longest time, you only had season 1 on Netflix. And it was unresolved. There was a lot unresolved at the end.
Oh
of the
yeah.
season. So season 2 is fantastic.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, I guess it's a minor spoiler for Young Justice. The end of season 1 is then a 5-year time leap forward for season 2, and you're kind of left going, "What the heck just happened? I don't understand." And they fill in throughout the season how we got to that 5-year jump forward and all the events that happened in between. So well done.
Lots of Green Arrow material out there to consume, and I probably never would have gotten into it had Wing not asked me to be on the podcast. I just wanted a podcast. He's like, "Well, this show might not be for you because I'm not into the dark, gritty stuff." Admittedly, like Hannibal, I will never watch Hannibal, but for this, I like it because it's a superhero show without superheroes. I know we're getting into the supernatural, the magical stuff, but there were real people, really, and you could kind of see where they went and how they had to adapt to the world changing around them. And so far, it's just been fun. It's dark, but it's been a fun dark. I don't know if that's makes any sense.
How do you spell that dark? Are we talking Damien or just dark as in lighting?
I was thinking that the whole time too.
This season definitely a dark. Yeah, and you know what? I think the first season gets a lot of crap from some people, some hardcore folks that I don't know. It gets a lot of crap. Let's just leave it at that. But I got to tell you, being a Longbow Hunters fan, so having a darker version of the character as part of my comics background, and then seeing him do his parkour and snap the neck of that first character with that kind of wrestling move, backwards neck snappy thing. That's a patented move, the neck snappy thing. WWE, you can use that if you want. I was like, this is exactly like my Green Arrow. I was hooked. I was hooked from the first episode. I don't know. It worked for me.
It did, because there was mystery around it too. Now, I'm not usually one for the heavy mystery stuff, but there was enough intrigue that I was just thinking, hey, look, there's something to figure out here. And we, at the time, were coming off of a couple of years of Lost too. So the island trope was like, all right, another island. Here we go, Gilligan, yay. But no, it was much better than that. It was real. It was gritty, and it's the time shifty thing that just grabbed me too, which we are still enjoying today. Really, it's hit or miss on whether the flashbacks actually are intriguing, but it works for the most part. What do you think about the flashbacks, Chris?
I didn't like it as much at first, and then once I started to realize how it was being set up to fundamentally tie into the story and play an important role, I've become much more understanding of them. It's just sometimes they get into a lull with them, and you're sitting there going, okay, guys, I understand you're doing this to set something else up, but it's been 4 episodes in a row of where's the kid? And you're like,
Fair enough. They do tend to drag on, and it depends on how much story they have to tell, because the main story is in real time, and they're just kind of filling in the blanks sometimes in the past. And I still can't get over the sub in the middle of the island. That was
that's true too.
That was a jump the sub over the island sort of arc there, but
but it worked. And I think back before DC knew what a gold mine they had on their hands, and we've talked about this on the cast, we got Deathstroke. We got Deathstroke in season 1. He's a big deal in the DCU.
Yeah.
We got the Huntress in season 1. We got a lot of these other great characters coming in, and we're a victim of our own success as fans of this show, that here we are supporting all these great DC elements, and now they realize they can move them to the big screen, and it does make me sad, but it makes me proud to be an Arrow fan, because we're the reason why we have the Flash and the Suicide Squad and this awareness, Legends of Tomorrow, Hawkgirl, potentially Gotham, potentially Supergirl. And Greg Berlanti, he had this as a hit. Heck, he got Blind Spot with Lady Sif, although it's not a DC character. It's due to his great success as a showrunner. So we can take some solace and some pride in that fact.
I keep wondering when they're going to pull the plug. Like, they must have an arc in mind that they're going to end the show. And we've talked about before how Stephen Amell is on contract for 2 more years, or is it 2 or 3? It's 3 more years, right? Through season 7.
Years. Yeah.
So Stephen Amell is wrapped up, but the question is, do they have enough story? Do they have enough clout? Are they going to have enough ratings to last for 3 years?
So here's the thing. It's a CW show, and look what the CW did with Smallville. Look what's doing with Supernatural. They ran through showrunners, multiple sets of showrunners, and literally the things just keep on going. As long as they can keep the principal cast on board and keep paying them, they'll go indefinitely, man. It's the CW's trend. Smallville went 10 seasons. Supernatural's on what, season 11 right now? Season 12?
Season 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a great season. I know that some people say that maybe at the beginning they were calling it in, but the story is fun and the characters I think they're having a good time. They're into it now. And the writers have gone in some really interesting directions.
I think so.
Anyway, we're talking about the CW show Arrow, DC Universe, comic book universe, and everything going on from that. So yeah, you guys were commenting on Arrow being the show that started it all. I definitely think it is the show that started it all in modern comics. We've had other shows before. We've talked about it before, but Arrow is the first show for all that. And I'm glad to be a part of it, really, because it definitely set the stage for everything else to come after it. As a matter of fact, it even set the stage for the Marvel universe as well, because if it wasn't for the success of Arrow, I don't know if we would have had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's true.
Yeah. So, Chris, what else you got for the Arrow show?
Oh man, I wish I had more right now. Don't use Smallville as your representative of what Green Arrow is. Their Green Arrow is very Batman-y.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think that's fair to say.
But I enjoyed it. It was, we hadn't seen Green Arrow on TV before, and yeah, his costume was a bit pleather. I gotta admit, it was a bit shiny in places. But I enjoyed. He was the Playboy Oliver Queen, which was kind of cool. It did show us that side of the character, and we haven't really gotten Playboy Oliver Queen a heck of a lot in the Arrow.
Well, no, we kind of did a little bit from time to time, but once he made that relationship up with Felicity, it was a one-woman show for him for a while. Of course, you still have women all over the planet pining for him, as we saw with Katana and with Nyssa. Oh, Oliver Queen's in trouble. We have to stop fighting to save Oliver Queen. Really?
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah. So those are, I like where the show's going. I like where it's gone. Hey guys, and maybe it's a contentious question. Have they overused Who's in the Grave? Is it time? Should they just tell us who's in the grave, or should they keep us guessing? I know we're having fun with it on the podcast. We keep coming back to it at the end of each episode's chat. What do you think?
It's episode 19 that the grave is in. The photos have been released and everything. We're at episode 15, so 16, 17, 18, 19. It's 4 more episodes. I think they have done a wonderful job of confusing the heck out of us, the watcher, on who exactly is in the grave. And that is a compliment, because if we would have been, oh, it's just Quentin. It's Chris and I are still like, it's Quentin, right? But every episode, it's like, well, no, it could be this person. It could be this character. It could be this character. So, could be anything. I think
they've done a great job keeping us guessing, so I can't complain about that. But at the same time, I'm just kind of sitting there like, come on, just reveal it already. I'm dying.
Agreed. You know what? I was stirring the pot a bit. I'm enjoying the Who's in the Grave conspiracy. It gives us something to talk about. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see now what happens with Damien Dark in prison without powers. I think it's going to set up some great tension on the show. And I think as we enter the backstretch, there's a lot of cool storylines that need to be tied back up. Are we getting Mr. Terrific this season? Is he going to come out in the Fair Play jacket and the T-sphere spinning around? What's going to happen with Dark? how is Merlin going to mess things up for everybody? There are some great unresolved questions. And if you're a shipper, there's the what's going to happen with Elicity. So there's something for everyone.
Great questions. Let's go with terrific, first of all. So they used the trope with Ray to become the Atom last season, right? And if they did the same thing up front right away with Mr. Terrific, it would have been like, oh, here we go again. So they took a completely different path. I don't know if we're ever going to see Mr. Terrific on the screen. However, the character, the persona has been there, and that's enough for me. Of course, I'm not the deep comic fan either. Chris, what do you think?
I like the fact that they're teasing it. I don't have to see Mr. Terrific, but we also have multiple seasons more where he could eventually show up.
Right. So the second part of that, Neil, was you ended with something I skipped my mind.
The second part was what's going to happen with a lot of the other storylines that they've built up. With how is Merlin going to screw everything up for everybody? How is Damien Dark going to resolve the storyline?
So Damien Dark in prison, right? Yeah. He's not going to last there very long. Not that he's going to die or anything, but Rouvet is going to get him out. Rouvet still has the ghost, still has the hive, and don't forget Malcolm's around. He's crazier than ever. The man is going to make something happen. So Dark is not going to stay in prison. And as we all know, he's going to come out and he's going to have either a as big or bigger talisman to do his voodoo magic with.
He's going to get his magic back. That's somehow going to get him out of prison. Or Rouvet is going to get him out of prison and he'll get his magic back. Either order, it doesn't matter to me. Those are two things I think we can expect.
Totally. And how big an impact is Merlin going to have in the rest of the season?
Of course, he's going to be huge.
Pretty big one, I'd wager.
There's going to be nothing that actually happens that is not going to have Merlin's involvement or him taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah. And it's funny, Hive's project with the field of subterranean core, and it reminds me of a second undertaking. So Merlin should feel right at home.
Yes, he should. This has been a story which is almost repeating itself, basically. And I think some things have changed. I think our hero cast has definitely come on board and said, hey, look, we're not that dumb anymore. We're a little bit more experienced and we can handle things a little bit more complicated, although this is very much more complicated. This is not your father's Mirakuru soldier army, that's for sure. Hey, Francis at Sort of Geek in the chat asked, do you feel that the hero cast, talking about the hero cast of Arrow, is a little too crowded? I've been noticing a drop in quality fight choreography with so many people on the screen. We have commented on that, Neil, haven't we?
Yeah, so if you take a look, well, we've had some great fight choreography. So the fight choreographer Bam Bam has directed to, and I think we had some fantastic fights, especially in the one against the demolition crew, the 3-story looking through the warehouse choreographed. But in a way, Francis, you're right that we haven't seen the epic Deathstroke versus Ollie fights that we had, or Malcolm, or even Roz. Roz versus Ollie were some epic sword fights. So we haven't seen a lot of those big single fights, and maybe they're just trying to do things different. The larger choreographed, where you can't spend as long on each character. We've had some great hallway fights, again, where we had Thea and Laurel storming the Hive building. But then we also had a couple that I think would fall short as well. Like when Nisa was escaping and we talked about that sword across the chest. They're like, did she just slap him with the sword? Or
CGI blood splatter too, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's been spotty. If you follow Bam Bam's Twitter feed and Instagram feed, he's been actually tweeting that he's been sitting down and going through some technicals lately. So I think there's some great fight scenes coming up. Does that answer your question? Is the cast too crowded? Probably not directly. I think they've tried to go for something different, not these epic one-on-one, eat up 4 or 5 minutes of script with a fight scene, because they've got so much story to tell. I'm happy with where it is. And I think it's changed the nature of the fights.
So I think they've gone differently to ensure that the fights are much more group centric than individual centric. And here's a patented conspiracy theory for you all. It's all because of Daredevil.
Could be.
How do you differentiate yourself from something where it has become arguably all the fanboys going, this is the best fight scenes ever on TV. Daredevil just goes in there and kicks butt, takes names, and it looks awesome. Well, you make things a little different. You use your whole team and you rely on the fact that we've got a bunch of characters that people really enjoy and some that people might not, but they can all fight pretty well. And they're all fairly well seasoned and trained warriors at this point in time. So let's use them. Let's show how powerful this team is.
Right. So great point, Chris. I do like that we do have a more experienced team. And Laurel, even, I know she's your favorite character, Chris.
My favorite.
Laurel is even getting credible, not only in the way she fights, but in the way she acts and the way she carries herself and that sort of thing. So yeah, the writers have been very careful to try to bring her back into, hey, this is not such a bad character. Because a lot of people are like you, Chris. They're like, I don't want to see Laurel on the screen anymore. And I think they've done a good job bringing her back. But to answer the first part of his question, I will say that, yes, I do think that the cast has gotten just a titch too crowded. And the reason why is because they were setting up for Legends of Tomorrow. And this was not only on Arrow, but this was on Flash as well. So they had to bring in a few more characters that they normally wouldn't have, just so they could throw them over to Legends of Tomorrow. And I just think that, did it work? It's causing a little bit of pain on both the other shows, and I don't know if they're going to do it again. But Adam asked a great question about the Legends of Tomorrow show, and I haven't watched all of it. I'm halfway through it, but I'm okay being spoiled. So Adam asked, what are your thoughts on last week's Legends of Tomorrow, which is Star City 2046?
Oh, man.
Chris, go for it.
I really enjoyed it, but there's such a flaw in the whole thing, and even Rip Hunter brings it up, is that when we go back in time, this future no longer exists. Why are you risking your own lives to do this? I understand it became a whole moral argument and things like that and a way to bring the team together, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, it's time travel. It's undone as soon as you leave. You risk the chance of someone dying. What are you doing? But that being said, the fallen Star City of 2046 was really pretty cool. I enjoyed the twist of finding out who Connor Hawk was. That was a nice little twist on things. And it was pretty cool to see old man Stephen Amell there with one arm, robotic arm. And it's tough to make Stephen Amell look old.
It is. They did their darndest.
They did their darndest.
And the close-ups were great. And he dropped his voice and he talked a bit slower. I love the beard. We mock the hair effects on the show, the hair department,
the follicle report, yes, as Chris calls it. Yes.
But I really enjoyed the big shaggy goatee on him. The robotic arm, Chris, you nailed it. I loved it. With it had a lot of elements of the Atom suit, the twisting joints and everything on it, with the Star Labs logo on it. The cool bow. He was fighting slower too. I think he was doing a good job to look old. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that episode. And yes, I love the twist on the Connor Hawk backstory and character.
Oliver was fighting like more of a bruiser. It reminded me of Dark Knight Returns Batman. Just going in there and just laying waste to people.
It reminded me a little bit about, Escape from New York, Escape from LA. The city is still kind of functional, quote unquote. You still have electricity. I don't know how. You still have electricity. You still have some minor functional things. Heck, you had a lighted bar too, an elevator. But it was a futuristic dystopia that was doable within the confines of the show. So is it going to win any Oscars? No, but it was a nice pit stop on their way to get it all done. And it was a way to bring Oliver Queen into the show and not disrupt any of Arrow whatsoever. So I think it was pretty cool.
Hashtag the Academy Awards hate comics.
They do. And they also hate The Martian. What's up with that? It was a good movie. I've watched it over and over again. Gosh. Best comedy of the year. Okay, sort of geek. Yeah, I get it. As Sort of Geek in the chat just said best comedy of the year, mocking The Martian, which was put up for best yeah, it was best comedy, right? Like, whatever. I know you guys are mocking me. Have you seen The Martian, Neil?
Twice. Yeah, I really
It was
enjoyed
good,
it.
right?
It was fantastic.
So
Yeah.
the question is, how many times has SP watched The Martian now?
So I stopped counting after about 8 because then I was able to have it on in the background, but it has been playing over and over, like as edit podcasts over the weekend and stuff like that. And every time I go past it, I get caught for just a few minutes. I'm not sucked in for 2.5 hours like I was the first couple of times, but
That's fantastic.
Wow.
I know. So it's a couple of minutes and I move on.
You are a resident rocket scientist. So
Yes. Yeah. Take a drink, rocket scientist there. All right, guys. Is there anything else that we want to talk about for Green Arrow in general? Because this is kind of a one-off that we're doing here.
I can't think of anything.
Neil?
No, I'm good. It was fun to just get together and hang out, guys.
It was. So next week on the schedule, we haven't talked about this yet, obviously. So next week on the schedule, we have Legends of Tomorrow recap. Do we want to do that, or do we want to follow up with Arrow 2.5 graphic novel next week? Thoughts, gentlemen?
Let's save Legends of Tomorrow for the summer. I think there's going to be a good arc we can talk about and not have to cut it off in the middle of the discussion.
And then we have a few episodes.
Yeah.
We can do it over a few summer episodes if need be.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can do it the way Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. has done Daredevil and Jessica Jones, where we just wait until it's all out and then keep marching through it when there's nothing else on. Unfortunately, in the Marvel Universe, there isn't any time that is true, so we just have to double up sometimes. But yeah, we can definitely do that this summer, go over Legends of Tomorrow. So that is the plan here on the Starling Tribune. Next week, we will cover Arrow Season 2.5 graphic novel, what we were supposed to cover tonight. And then followed up by the next week, we will watch Man of Steel, and we will talk about it very briefly before the Batman versus Superman movie comes out. And we will probably also talk about Batman versus Superman.
Don't make me do it, guys. Don't make me do it.
Killing me. You're killing me.
Take one for the team. Take one for the team.
This is taking one for the team. I refused to see Deadpool opening weekend, by the way. I was wrong then. I admitted that, but
You won't be wrong here.
well, that's what I'm hearing thoughts from the test audiences, and they're like, yeah, no. And so, yeah, we heard that from Fantastic Four too. So just saying, we'll talk
we might
about
have to put it off a couple weeks just so we can let everybody see it, so we're not spoiling it for them. How about that?
That's good. That's good. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks, and through the next week, through the mid-spring hiatus finale, and we'll just take it from there.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right. So thank you very much, everybody who came in the chat room. We'll stay around for a quick post show. Thank you very much to everybody that downloads the show. We really appreciate you review, rating, and subscribing.
Great. And as always, thank you to everybody who hopped in on the Blab chat this evening for our special spring hiatus Q&A session. If you're listening to this on YouTube or on your podcast listening device of choice, and you want to join in on the live fun, you can join us live on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on blab.im, and search for the Starling Tribune. And don't forget, after the show, we always open up the fourth seat on the Blab interface for our live listeners to hang out and share their thoughts. You can watch the next live show on the Gonna Geek networks over at geeks.live. And our next live show on Gonna Geek is All Things Good and Nerdy, ATGN, live Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. 8 a.m., pardon me, 11 a.m.
I got confused.
Don't worry, I've just moved the time of your show on you, Chris.
That's okay.
Well, this was great. And if you like the shows like this, we are on a network, the GonnaGeek.com network, and we have a bunch of other geeky shows, including Tyrion's Landing, talking about Game of Thrones. Their latest episode is episode 96, Trailer Time. And in this episode, the Tyrion's Landing hosts, Jeannie and Nikki, discuss their theories of what the first full Game of Thrones trailer means. And Game of Thrones, for all you fans on the HBO, is coming out soon. So catch up to Tyrion's Landing.
So don't forget, if you want to find our contact information and other great shows on the Gonna Geek Network, head on over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com. While you're there, check out the forums, check out all the other great shows that make up the network. If you want to share your thoughts on anything you've heard today, head on over to our Facebook page, send us a tweet, or best of all, give us a call at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283.
Great. Guys, as I said, it was really fun to hang out and just talk Arrow with you guys. That about wraps it up for another week. Any last words as we sign off and open up the Blab interface to our live listeners? At Chris Farrell.
I got nothing.
At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag Chris loves Laurel.
And I am at Neil Isn't Witty, signing off with hashtag Spring Hiatus. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.
All right, we are officially in the post show. Anything goes. Come on, guys. Come on in. I know you're out there. I know you want to talk comics. I know you want to talk DC. We'll even talk Marvel because, of course, the big announcement came out today. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got a season 4. Legends panel. That's funny. So in the chat, Legends panel said, meanwhile, I was on Spreaker chatting, just finding out about blab.am. So you were listening to us on Spreaker. I'm so sorry. At the beginning of the Spreaker, I explained to go to geeks.live, which will give you the blab here. So sorry about that. But what were some of the things you had to say? Go ahead and put them in here and we will talk about them. Anyway, this we just got done recording our podcast. Yeah, sure.
Oh, nice.
I see you do a podcast about comics and stuff. We actually have several comic podcasts on the Gonna Geek Network. There is Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. There is Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Long Box Edition. There is the Starling Tribune, Crimson Comet, and Like a Girl. Did I miss any? I'm sure I did.
It's possible, but I can't think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, so we have a great podcast network, the GonnaGeek.com podcast network. And if you are interested in joining the Gonna Geek podcast network, go to GonnaGeek.com/about, and it shows you how to apply for the network. Just throwing that plug in there. Okay. Neil, I'm guessing you're hungry.
You know what? There are only so many nutrients in a glass of Guinness, so man cannot live on Guinness alone.
And you can't, when you're podcasting, you can't eat because it gets stuck in your teeth and you're chewing and you can't mute your mic that well and
That's
stuff.
okay. It's only just after 7 p.m. here on the West Coast. So
I hate you.
10:09.
I got to bed at midnight last night after Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm like, oh, I need to do something better with my life.
Okay. Sort of Geeks out on the West Coast, too,
Yeah.
so you're not alone, Neil.
Kicking it, sorry, it's very uncool. Kicking it West Coast. That's right, that's wrong with, there we go. West Coast. So uncool.
That's
I should
funny.
never do that again.
Never.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that everything went wrong this day. Oh my gosh. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Guess what? I was chatting you about your SD card. Did you see me get up about, I don't know, 15 minutes into the podcast? Where was my SD card? In my computer. So the editor is going to have some fun with this one, throwing in the Spreaker or the Blab audio. Oh.
Cool. Well, guys, with that, then I will hop out of here and
Yeah.
go join my wife for dinner. So, guys, as I said, it was a lot of fun chatting. Everybody in the blab.im interface, awesome to have you join us and just shoot the crap about Arrow this week. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
It
guys.
was a lot of fun.
I'm going to sign off. Have a good one.
Yeah, see you guys
Bye,
next
guys.
week. Bye.